Thank you for attending this session on what UKTI can offer you in terms of services and support, and with particular reference to India and the MENA region. The key things I think that you need to take away from this session about UKTI is that there are people called ITAs, that is International Trade Advisors, such as myself, and they become your point of contact with UKTI. They will understand what your problems are, and they will then be able to explain which of the best services and support and so forth are available for you. And the other one is our website, www.ukti.gov.uk. All our services are promoted on that. If you join up to it, you don't get bombarded with emails or junk mail, but you can identify your profile, and then if a business opportunity that matches your profile comes along, you will get an email alert to go and look at the actual opportunity. So your ITA and the website are the two key aspects that we want to understand. Now, there are lots of different UKTI services, and I often like to think of them a bit like an artist palette, a bit like different colours. You choose whichever service you need at whichever point in time which is most appropriate, and perhaps you use two services at the same time to get maximum benefit. Obviously, the International Trade Advisor is your guide through this palette, and if you are a company which is new to exporting and wanting to develop some of the skills necessary to export successfully, then a program such as Passport to Export is almost certainly designed for you. Because on that program you start off with a couple of days training on what exporting is about, what research you need to do, how to do the research, which countries perhaps you could start off with, which are the easy countries to export to, which are the difficult ones. So all that is covered in a 2-day training program, and then you will work with an international trade advisor for the next 12 months to develop your export action plan. And during that action planning, your ITA will be able to say, well, there's a trade mission going to perhaps Turkey, or there's a trade mission going to Mexico. Those are the countries that you're interested in. Why not go along with that? And begin to develop your exporting skills. The Passport program is essentially about developing your skill to export. If, however, you are slightly more experienced and already have some knowledge of exporting, then the 3G program, the Gateway to Global Growth, may be more appropriate, because that dispenses with the training program, but it does give you all the points of contact with the International Trade Advisor to point you in the right direction, to advise you of any grants that might be available, or to suggest, again, trade missions. And trade missions are a particularly valuable way of going into a country for the first time if you're new. Because if you are beginning to export, your first export trip can be quite daunting. You can arrive at the airport with your suitcase and your bag of samples or your folder or whatever, and you're totally on your own. However, if you go with a trade mission, then a number of things will be different. One is that you will have had a briefing before you go on issues to do with that particular country, any cultural issues that you might need to be aware of, whether you need your business card, for instance, translating and back and front, details like that. They will have also given you any indications that your product or service might attract particular sort of import duty or other forms of tax. And then they will have also publicised your arrival in the local papers. So people will be aware that you are coming, and they will have had your profile before you arrive. When you arrive, you'll be met, you'll be taken to the hotel, you will have a meeting at the British Embassy, you'll be told what the current state of play is in that particular country, whether the ministries have got any special projects going that might affect your sector. You will probably also meet some local business people, perhaps who are actually looking for your product or service. And then the likelihood is you will also attend a reception and a press conference where local businesses will be invited in to meet you. And then for the rest of the week, you will have a program of appointments, some which you may have set up yourself, but others which perhaps been set up by the commercial officers at the embassy, for people who are either interested in buying from you or from people who can provide you with the sort of research that you need to make a decision on whether to go into that country. So that's a trade mission, very, very supportive of people who are new to exporting. Once you've been to a country 2 or 3 times, it doesn't matter. You're comfortable, you know your way around, you can go in on your own. But as a first start, a trade mission is a really good way of entering a country. The next one going round the clock is TAP, Trade Show Access Programme. This is a grant that's available. Suppose this was taking place overseas and you had a stand here, then you may well be eligible for a grant towards exhibiting at that particular exhibition. So Trade Show Access Programme is another valuable UKTI service. It's not available to every exhibition or to every company, but again, if you're working with an ITA, they will know whether the exhibition is eligible and you're eligible. Straightforward research, UKTI will suggest that you should never go into a country without having done the appropriate research. It is absolutely fundamental. If you don't do the research, you can make many, many mistakes in assuming that something will happen or something is, and the reality is that it is not that. So research is absolutely key. And one way of doing the research is to commission the commercial officers who are based in the British embassies to undertake that research for you. Now, this is a chargeable service, but nonetheless it is heavily subsidised, and the advantage is that you are asking people who are resident in that country, often nationals of that country who are locally appointed and who have an understanding of your sector. So typically there will be an education commercial officer in most embassies, and if your query, if your product is in some way related to the education sector, they will undertake the research for you. It may be that you are trying to find who the people in certain companies are that you should talk to. It may be that you are looking to find a distributor who has a good network into schools across a particular country. And the education commercial officer is the person who's best placed to do that for you. So that brings us round to the bottom part, which is commercial officers. Commercial officers are generally locally appointed officers of the British Embassy whose remit is to assist British companies in those markets to be aware of what is happening in their sector in those markets, and if necessary to send business opportunities back to the UK, back to companies who are looking for opportunities in a particular market. widely respected and very well informed. And in fact, we have about a dozen of them next door, having one-to-one meetings with delegates at this exhibition, simply explaining what's happening in their country. Perhaps you go and say, this is my idea, this is my product, what do you think? They will give you a quick 20 minutes, 30 minutes assessment of how perhaps you should proceed. It may be that it's a straight no. They may say, well, no, actually, that's forbidden. Or it may be they'll say, well, yes, but you've got lots of competitors. It's that sort of on-the-ground experience that can be particularly helpful. We also work with lots of trade associations, such as BISA, in providing support, in providing perhaps grants for people who are attending some of those exhibitions. So all these services, and they keep changing. They will change again on the 1st of April when we get our new budgets and so forth. So the ITA is the person who will be able to tell you which of those to select for any given purposes. But it's not the individual service on its own that's important. It's how you put it all together. So there you are, you're standing there with your suitcase on your own, nothing's happened, but possibly you have been in touch with the commercial officers of the country that you're going to, you've had a dialogue, you've explained what it is you're trying to do, you may have even commissioned some research, we call it OMIS, but nonetheless they may have commissioned some research, and as a result of that research, they may have put together a diary of appointments for you. So when you arrive in country, Monday morning, Monday afternoon, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you've perhaps got appointments with people that you are doing research with or trying to sell to or trying to form partnerships with. I would always suggest that you never fill your week with appointments. You leave the Thursday afternoon and the Friday for follow-up meetings from the ones that you've already met. And those appointments will be people who have said yes, they want to meet you. So what will have happened is the commercial officer at the embassy will have phoned a company, they will have explained who you are, what you are, and what it is that you're trying to achieve, and they will have said, would you like to meet these people? And if they say yes, you will have an appointment. If they say, well, no, I don't think there's any point, then you won't have an appointment. So you are only meeting people who have expressed an interest in meeting you. So that's the advantage of having a set of appointments set up in advance. And if you can tie it into an exhibition at the same time, then you're getting sort of double the value for your money. And you may have got TAP funding to be there in the first place. So all of that, putting all those various services together, is with the sole purpose of trying to put you in front of a person who you can do a deal with. And that's essentially what UKTI is about. It's trying to put you in the right place at the right time so that you can strike a deal with a particular supplier or service provider. So generally, that's what happens. But how does it operate in particular countries? And I picked two to look at. One is India, and the other is the MENA regions. India is huge. It has a population of over 1 billion people. It's greater than the size of Western Europe. So where do you start? Even the small cities are often bigger than London. So it is an enormous task. And the first thing I would suggest is that you stop thinking about India as India, but you think of it as a collection of states. And if you just look at Karnataka, this one, it's the size of the UK, It's got a population almost the same as the UK, and its national product isn't that far off the UK. So think not of India, which is simply too big. You can't do all of India in one go. But think of the individual states. Look at what is happening in those states, and there are 29 of them. They're all at different stages of development. In the education field, they've all got different desires at the moment. But one thing they have got is an expanding education sector. Everything in India is expanding. They're building more schools. They're building more universities. They're building more training colleges. They are simply expanding the education sector. So if you can sell into the UK education sector, you have opportunities in India. But it is worth spending time to look at which state or states you should try first. Or even it may just be a city. And to help you is UKTI. We have offices across India. The main one, the main embassy, the main High Commission is in New Delhi, but then we have Deputy High Commissions in Chandigarh, in Kolkata, in Hyderabad, in Chennai, in Bangalore. We have a trade office in Pune. We have another Deputy High Commission in Mumbai, Ahmedabad. So lots of opportunities, lots of local knowledge on the ground in India to assist you. And the education team is across India. So there are representatives of the India education sector in each of those posts. So wherever you're trying to go, whatever you're trying to do, there will be a person on the ground in India with that particular expertise who can help you make the right contacts, who can suggest how you go about things, and who can arrange appointments for you. If we look at the other hand across MENA, and different people have different meanings of what MENA is, but the first thing to say is Middle East, North Africa. The overall population, round about 500 million, so again, about half the size of India, a huge population. And UKTI has 25 offices across that. Now, because these are all individual countries rather than individual states, they are arranged, generally speaking, in the capitals of those countries, Casablanca, Rabat, Algiers, and so forth. Commercial officers with skills that can help you across all those. I'm put a question mark about Tripoli at the moment because it's perhaps not the easiest market to go into, but nonetheless it will come back. And the other half, the more traditional Middle Eastern side, again, I've got Aleppo and Damascus with question marks against them. I have to say that about 5 years ago, I took a trade mission to Syria, to Jordan and Beirut, and the opportunities are very good. But unfortunately, circumstances have intervened. But when those circumstances are over, the education requirements in all those states will be high. So if that's what your service is, then it's important. And you will find that the commercial officers in each of these countries understand not only their particular country, but how it fits within the sort of Gulf area generally. And what you will find in the Middle East is that often the country boundary isn't as important as the contact between the family members of the people that you're dealing with. For instance, many a Jordanian company will say, well, my cousin is also active in Saudi Arabia. And working your way into Saudi Arabia through a partnership with a company in Jordan can be very much easier than trying to go into Saudi Arabia directly. They will also know at the moment, for instance, that Doha, Qatar, is very, very popular. A lot of expansion taking place in Qatar over different issues, particularly on infrastructure, but infrastructure brings training requirements. So training, again, is very popular. Riyadh, Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, the biggest market by far in the Middle East, but also the most difficult. Difficult to get visas for, difficult to travel around, but I have clients that do get visas, and they do go into Saudi Arabia, and they do good business. And some of those clients are ladies who travel on their own. Travel on their own, usually within a trade mission, because to travel on your own literally is perhaps even more difficult. But the point is that in each of those cities, in each of those areas, there is a commercial officer who is able to assist, who is able to find appointments for you, suggest ways of doing things, highlight difficulties with the law or with import duties, and help you get the best deal out of your program. Finally, some generic principles which I think apply wherever you are, and it's important to remember that people do business with people. So you aren't getting a company to buy from you or to use your services. You are getting somebody in that company to do business with you. And that's a particularly important aspect of doing business in the Middle East. It is very, very relationship based. They like to know who they are doing business with. They like to get to know you. They like to understand you. They like to trust you. And the more that develops, the more business you are likely to get. The second point is that no matter what your product is, whoever is buying it in relation to a problem they have. And if you can identify what that problem is, you are halfway to making the sale. Rather than just selling your box, you have to show how your box will solve their problem, how it will fit into their particular set of difficulties. So look very critically at how you promote the product, and first of all identify how the customer is going to make use of it, and then your box can fit into his particular hole, as it were. Make the offer clear. You will be familiar with the UK education market. A lot of overseas countries aren't clear about what the UK education market is. They will understand primary, secondary. They may not quite work out where a sixth form fits, because a lot of overseas countries, they go from school, graduate from school, and then go on to college. They will have great difficulty understanding where the colleges of what used to be further education fit, because they aren't schools and they aren't universities, so what are they? So you need, if that's your sector, you need to make that clear. And you also need to explain perhaps the difference between A-levels and baccalaureates and universities and diplomas. Don't assume that they understand what it is you are talking about. So make it very explicit how you are fitting in with the particular sector and how it will fit into their sector, how they can make use of it. Be observant for other contracts. Once you've got into a company, if you're selling into a company, make the habit of visiting them, make the habit of having coffee and chatting with your contact in that company, and begin to find where other problems exist. In training, it's particularly easy because there are training difficulties across all the sectors. So you might be chatting to the HR director, solving one set of problems, perhaps for engineering apprentices, and you could inquire whether or not their finance director has got appropriate CPD and so forth. So look for other opportunities within the same company and then use those company contacts to get in touch with other companies that they know. Use them as a source of referral. And that may be in the same country, it may be in a different country. I got referred once from a company I was doing business with in Kuwait, but his cousin was active in a company in Qatar. And he said, you ought to go and visit. You ought to go and see my cousin. Tell him I've sent you. And that can be a very effective way of moving across the region. As I say, make use of other across different companies. And country borders, I already mentioned, their country borders are often less significant in the Middle East. It's family business, it's family businesses, it's where the particular family members are, and they will be scattered all the way across the Middle East and further. Make use of that. And deliver what you promise. Because the one time that you don't deliver what you promise is the time that all the messages go to all those family members across the Middle East. Oh, don't do business with them. You know, they don't deliver. And you only need one of those and it will destroy your reputation. So always deliver what you promise. So to recap, you need to get in touch with an ITA, an international trade advisor. That is absolutely key. You need to be on the website. You need to be looking at the website, and you need to be perhaps responding to alerts. There are company and country and sector reports readily available on the website. So if you want to know what's happening in education in France, there's a report on the website that will tell you. And lots of other information. Commercial officers, these are the people in our embassies overseas who are looking to develop trade between the countries. So again, once you know, for instance, that France is your market, then get to know the commercial officer responsible for France. And then when she comes over, as she does today, and she's sitting next door, you can have a conversation. You can find out what's happening on the ground. Market visit support, small grants that are available to help you enter the market. Trade show access program, again a grant to attend exhibitions. OMIS, the overall figure, the overall name for undertaking research, commissioning research, missions. ECR is an export communication review. Somebody can have a look at how you've written your material, how you've set up your website. Is it appropriate for Mexican Spanish? Is it appropriate for Brazilian Portuguese? There are experts who will say, no, you've got the language wrong. You need to tweak it. And EMRS, export market research schemes, where you may have funding to literally research a market to see whether a country has actually got a market for you. So lots of different services, and I think the only way you can understand them is by having your own ITA who can take you through the particular services which are available at any one time.